Order.
Statements by members. Déclaration de députés. Honorable député d'Avignon.
The Honourable Member for Avignon and Métis-Matane-Matapédia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The citizens of my riding, Avignon, Métis-Matane-Matapédia, are once again enjoying exceptionally good winter conditions. It's only the beginning of February and already 250 centimeters of snow has fallen. The bounty of our nature, the vistas of sea and mountain make our region unique. And the people know how to enjoy it and how to help our many visitors enjoy it as well. Throughout our riding, hundreds of volunteers give their time to organize events, festivals, and carnivals that highlight our winter. Hundreds of people work hard every day to make our extraordinary ski hills, outdoor centers, and skidoo trails available to everyone. Once again, this winter, young and old are buckling down to organize a range of activities to citizens and visitors alike. Thank you to all the organizers and volunteers. Your commitment is extraordinary.
Député de Repentigny.
Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, on this Valentine's Day, love is everywhere you look, including in this house. Cupid is flying everywhere, loosing arrow after hour into innocent hearts. How else to explain this government's love for web giants? They don't pay their taxes here on their advertising revenue, and they make record profits by cannibalizing our media's content. Yet they are the ones receiving the lion's share of federal advertising investment. Even the IMF doesn't understand this, putting at $700 million the shortfall for the Facebooks and Googles of this world. The government must end this dangerous adventure with the web giants. It must make multinationals declare their advertising revenue here in the same way that all Quebec businesses do. They must question their feelings for our media, who, besides producing high-quality original content, have the decency to pay their taxes here.
Honourable Member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, here in Ottawa, we're in the deep throes of winter. But in my beautiful riding of Richmond Centre, spring is just around the corner. Soon, the blooming crocus of spring in Richmond will give way to the sunshine of summer. But not all is sunny ways. The Canada Summer Job Program plays a crucial role in handing valuable workplace experience to the youth of Canada, and has been used by some agencies combating social isolation among seniors. However, many agencies involved in this important work cannot and will not sign onto the Liberals' values test. I, as well as the numerous constituents of Richmond Centre that have petitioned me, urge this government to remove this shameful attestation and return some of the brightness into the lives of our most valuable resources, the elderly and the young. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, 9 years ago this month, I introduced a bill on a corporate accountability C-300. It proposed the withdrawal of consular and financial support from Canadian mining companies found to have breached international human rights or environmental standards. Companies told us that this would be the end of Western civilization as we know it. Hell hath no fury like a mining company cut off from its money and support. Needless to say, C-300 nearly died several times as it made its way from the House to committee and back again. But die it ultimately did by 6 votes. Yet it had an afterlife and lived on in the imagination of civil society, the international press, and hundreds of thousands of Canadians. At one point, 450,000 petitions were presented to the Prime Minister and ignored. January 17th was Resurrection Day for C-300, with the announcement of the creation of the Canadian Ombudsperson for Responsible Enterprise. I'd like to thank the Prime Minister, the previous and current Ministers of International Trade, and the hundreds of thousands of Canadians that kept the dream of C-300 alive.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, 9 years after Nortel failed, leaving their pensioners in the lurch, Sears Canada did the same, terminating 15,000 employees, denying severance or termination pay, and cutting off benefits. At the same time, Sears executives were given over $6 million in bonuses. Last month, the Prime Minister said the displaced Sears employees can fall back on EI and CPP. Sadly, he doesn't understand that in Canada, the scales are weighted in favor of large corporations and the richest in society. Hard-working Canadians play by a different set of rules or are told to wait at the end of the line. This is why I've introduced Bill C-384, which offers a simple proposal for ending pension theft. My bill includes amendments to Canada's inadequate bankruptcy laws that will ensure that workers' pensions, along with any severance packages, are paid out ahead of wealthy creditors, banks, and parent companies whenever a company files for bankruptcy protection. These changes would have a profound effect on the lives of many workers and pensioners. We can and we must do more. We have offered the government a solution, and now it's time for them to act. Bravo!
The Honourable Member for La Salle-et-Mar-Verdun.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honour Black History Month and recognise the legacy of Black Canadians past and present.
Today, I would like to tell you the story of Fred Christie, a die-hard Montreal Canadiens fan, a Montrealer of Afro-American origin who worked hard to get seasons tickets in the 1930s. Like many at the time, Christie was a fan of Maurice the Rocket Richard, and he used to go to the Montreal Forum Tavern to cheer on his team. Unfortunately, in 1936, Christie was the victim of discrimination on the part of the tavern that refused to serve him because of his skin color. Even though he called the police, they never came. He ended up taking the tavern to court. But tragically, eventually, the Supreme Court validated that service refusal.
That have suffered similar and tragic stories. This Black History Month, let us reflect on our collective history and recognize not only the suffering of that the Black community has endured, but also their massive contribution to Canadian society. Merci.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer-Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, the Red Deer Royals Marching Show Band has entertained people all over the world and across our country. They are fantastic ambassadors for our nation and have been a source of immense pride in Central Alberta for nearly 50 years. Just recently, the Red Deer Royals received a gold medal at the 2017 World Music Contest at Kerkrade, Netherlands. For the first time in their history, the Royals have built themselves a permanent home for rehearsals and training. The organization has done yeoman's work to raise the money for this space and now looks for respect from their federal government. The Red Deer Royals have previously applied for Canada 150 funding, but were turned down. They look for other programs to apply through, but there are none. Mr. Speaker, I have in my possession more than 1,000 letters written by Red Deer Royals members, alumni, families, and supporters from all over Central Alberta, requesting the Prime Minister's support to help fund this project. As the current government has no qualms with deficits, is spending billions outside of Canada's borders, pays millions for a temporary ice rink, it seems only fitting that it would support the long-term legacy and ambassadorship of the Red Deer Royals. As I give these letters to the Prime Minister, I hope their request receives every consideration.
The Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to rise in this House today to highlight an important anniversary in the history of my riding, the 60th birthday of the city of Brassard. Despite its young age, Brassard is a first-class city, one of the most open and welcoming in Quebec. Its proximity to downtown Montreal, its contribution to the economic development of our region, and above all, its social life and vibrant, diverse community has acted as a magnet for all its residents.
The city of Brossard was the first officially multicultural city in the province, as it boasts of over 60 cultural communities, all living in harmony and in mutual respect. Brossard, and more generally the constituency that I am so lucky to represent, is a true symbol of our Prime Minister's unambiguous belief that diversity is our strength. Encore une fois.
Once again, I would like to wish a very happy birthday to the city of Brassard and to all its residents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Black History Month. In my riding of Mississauga-Streetsville, we truly have representation of Canadian values, in that we are rich in our diversity and cultural variety. To mark the significance of Black History Month, I had the pleasure of attending an event hosted by the United Way Peel region. The primary focus of the event was mental health awareness in the Black community. Now I'd like to, Mr. Speaker, to pay special recognition to the Black Community Advisory Council of the United Way Peel region and their leadership and exemplary work that they show in our community and the understanding and compassion that they promote. Thank you.
Honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Daja How, Wu Shin Men How Peng Jo Saibo Go. This week, nearly 2 million Canadians will be celebrating the Lunar New Year. Thousands of Markham residents will be joining in on this festival. In my riding, this day is very special. That is why I have spent some time over the last few weeks putting together red pockets to share with my constituents. This is a time where families get together, decorate, and enjoy a meal together. Please allow me to take this opportunity to wish all the Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese Canadians a happy New Year. Markham residents will be welcoming the Year of the Dog. I am looking forward to getting back to Markham today to take part in the celebration. Shin Chun Kwai Lo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, February 16th marks the start of the Lunar New Year, and the month has been filled with Lunar New Year celebrations across Canada and in my riding. I've had the honour of being invited to the Tet Festival hosted by the Vietnamese Association, the Lunar New Year celebration at Vaughan City Hall, and I have several more wonderful Lunar New Year events to attend over the next few weeks. I want to thank the Federation of Chinese Canadians, Dr. Ken Ing, the Vietnamese Association, and the Korean community for sharing their rich heritage and culture with Canadians and for helping to host a number of wonderful events. On behalf of myself and my colleagues in the House, we wish good fortune, good health, and a year of happiness to all those celebrating. Say hey buk mani baduseo, shuk mong nam moi, gung hei fat choi, Happy New Year.
Well done. The honourable member for Don Valley North.
Mr. Speaker, on the occasion of a Spring Festival, we come together to bridge our cultural differences and to strengthen our multicultural society. Spring Festival is a time to celebrate the contributions of Canadians of Asian heritage to the growth and the prosperity of Canada. Thanks to this country's multiculturalism, new Canadians from all parts of the world enjoy harmony, cross-cultural understanding, and mutual respect. I encourage all my colleagues to participate in tonight's Spring Festival reception from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Sir John Macdonald Building. It is a chance to see firsthand how Canada's commitment to diversity and multiculturalism is what makes this country so special. Happy Spring Festival. 春节快乐.
Honourable member for Portage Lisgar.
The Olympic Winter Games are in full swing, and despite the cold, Canadians everywhere have Olympic fever. Canadian athletes dedicate their lives to their sport, and to be able to proudly carry the Olympic hopes of all Canadians into competition with them. Che Genoway from Morden in my riding of Portage Lisgar is one of those fiercely determined athletes who has never given up on his dream. And tomorrow morning he will take to the ice as the men's Olympic team faces Switzerland. For Che, hockey hasn't just been a game that he plays, but an absolute passion since he was only 2 years of age. Che knew from a very young age that he wanted to spend his life playing the game he loves, and he's always been supported by his entire family, especially his brother Colby. While this is Che's first Olympic Games, he is no stranger to representing Canada in big tournaments like the Spengler and the Deutschland Cup. Good luck, Che, and the whole Canadian men's Olympic hockey team as you kick off your quest for gold. We're all cheering for you. I know you will make us all immensely proud.
Honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, to quote Emily Dickinson, "If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain." We must all join the Heart and Stroke Foundation's pledge to save hearts from breaking and lives from being shattered due to heart-related illnesses. Mr. Speaker, 9 in 10 Canadians have at least one risk factor for heart disease and stroke. Almost 80% of premature heart disease and stroke can be prevented through healthy diet and active living. Today is the Heart and Stroke Foundation's Heart Day on the Hill, and I wear my heart pin to promote healthy hearts. At a time when heart disease is on the rise in Canada, We must raise awareness for ourselves and for our future generation so we can live, love, and use our hearts to our full capacity. Happy Valentine's Day, Mr. Speaker.
All right. And to all my colleagues. The honourable member for Vancouver East.
28 years ago, Indigenous women in the downtown East Side marched for the first time to bring attention to the debilitating number of women and girls missing and murdered in their community. 28 years later, the RCMP indicates that there are 1,200 cases of missing or murdered Indigenous women and girls across Canada. Many believe the numbers to be much higher. Communities across the country are still marching, still demanding action and accountability. There's not one Indigenous community in Canada who has not been touched by systemic racism and sexism that allowed Indigenous women and girls to be stolen from their loved ones. And I may add, Indigenous men like Colton Bushey to be killed without repercussions. My heart is with the families and allies who are marching once again for justice. We need to honor the memories of the women and girls by demanding concrete action and justice, not just today, but every single day, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to pay my respects to the late and former Senator Burt Brown. To his daughter, Angela, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Burt died on February 3rd, just shy of his 80th birthday, and 3 years after the passing of his beloved wife, Alice. The distinguished Albertan studied civil engineering at the University of Oklahoma, earned a pilot's license after Vietnam vets taught him how to fly, advised Alberta's premier on the Charlottetown Accord, was a licensed realtor, a former newspaper columnist, a past director of the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, and a member of the board for my riding association. In 2007, Prime Minister Stephen Harper appointed Burt Brown to the Senate of Canada 3 years after he took the most votes in Alberta's third Senate election in 2004. Prior to his appointment, he spent 20 years fighting for an elected, equal, and effective Senate. Burt is best known, especially in my part of the country, for plowing the message Triple E Senate or else into his neighbor's barley field. Burt, you will be sadly missed.
Honourable member for Bay of Quinte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to applaud the courage and resilience of a remarkable family from the Bay of Quinte who has faced unimaginable loss not once but twice. The Grushi family lost their beloved daughter Holly in 2005 at age 11. The same aggressive brain tumor also claimed their life of their beautiful daughter Katie this past October at age 20. Yet they have remained tireless advocates for others affected by this devastating disease. Throughout their journey, the Grushi family has raised public awareness and much-needed funding for brain cancer research. Their story has inspired outpouring of support, including generous donations to the Gord Downey Fund for Brain Cancer Research. Gord, as you know, also lost his battle to brain cancer last year. I encourage all my honourable colleagues and all Canadians to champion this cause so that groundbreaking research needed to expand treatment options and improve outcomes can continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions orales. The honourable member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said in legalizing marijuana that he was doing it because he wanted to keep organized crime out of the market. We're learning today of significant investments being made in Quebec cannabis companies by offshore accounts that have anonymous members. Can the Prime Minister give us assurances that these are not companies set up by organized crime?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, right now, the
the sale of marijuana across this country puts billions of dollars in the pockets of organized crime. That is a failure of the current actual system. We know that by legalizing and controlling the sale of marijuana, not only will we reduce the profits going to organized crime, street gangs, and gun runners, we're going to do a better job of protecting our kids and their communities with a legalized framework.
The honourable member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to bring to the Prime Minister's attention an actual issue, and I don't need his talking points given back to me. There's a company that's based in the Cayman Islands. It has secret investors. It has just invested $271 million into a Quebec cannabis company. And guess what? The founder of that company, the former chief financial officer of the Liberal Party of Canada. Canadians deserve to have the assurance that there's no organized crime element within these secret investors.
The honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one of the fundamental reasons for which we are legalizing and controlling the sale of marijuana is to reduce the amount of profits going into the coffers of organized crime across the country. For 10 years, the Conservative government allowed to perpetuate a system of prohibition that actually created sources of funding for organized crime, street gangs, gun runners to continue to expand their illicit activities. We are moving forward to limit the profits to organized crime through the legal framework for marijuana. That's what we're sticking with.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, despite all the warnings, the Prime Minister insists on legalizing marijuana by July 1st in less than 5 months. The closer we get to the deadline, the more we understand why. Where there's money, where there are tax havens, there are people close to the Liberal Party ready to do anything to line their pockets. Is that why the Prime Minister is trying to interfere with the work of senators in the Senate? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's very simple. The current system is a failure. It does not protect our children. It does not protect our communities. It does not prevent organized crime from profiting through millions of dollars through the sale of marijuana. That is why we are putting forward a system that will control and regulate the sale of marijuana as well as its production in order to make sure that we can better protect our children and better protect our communities and ensure that organized crime does not profit through billions of dollars. The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, here are the facts of why the Liberals want to rush the legalization of marijuana. Because hundreds of millions of dollars from anonymous investors located in tax havens have invested in Canadian companies that belong to certain friends of the Liberals. Can the Prime Minister assure all Canadians that nobody involved with organized crime, none of his Liberal friends, are among the companies that are producing marijuana? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Part of our framework around the sale of marijuana includes conducting in-depth verification, including verifying investors in marijuana-producing companies. I can say that, yes, we are going to make sure that nobody involved in organized crime is investing in the sale and production of marijuana. The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, tax haven is synonymous with Liberal Party. The former National Director of the Liberal Party of Canada, the former Chief Financial Officer of the Liberal Party, former Liberal Ministers of Health, Justice, and National Revenue, and major party donors. What do they all have in common? They are all influential Liberals. They are all people the Prime Minister knows personally. They are all people who are getting rich with the legalization of marijuana. Are we witnessing the new sponsorship scandal? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are trying to distract us from their own failure in this file. Under conservative leadership, they perpetuated a system where youth in Canada had easier access to marijuana in Canada than 29 other countries throughout the world. Their system was a complete failure. We want to better protect our youth. We want to eliminate the profits generated by organized crime, and that is exactly what we are doing, and they have nothing to say about that. The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neigette, Témiscouata, Les Basques.
Those voted down an NDP motion that would have taken real action in fighting tax havens. Why this Prime Minister won't stand up to tax cheats and the unaccountable leadership at the Canada Revenue Agency is beyond me. But what's clear to me and what's clear to Canadians is that highly connected Liberal insiders aren't shy about exploiting Canada's weakness on tax havens to invest in cannabis production. Why is the Prime Minister so slow on enacting on the unaccountability of the CRA, so slow in acting against tax havens, and even slower in addressing the critical issue of anonymous tax havens in investing in Canadian cannabis production?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's nice to see the NDP and Conservatives working together for once. The Minister of Finance recently reached an agreement with his provincial and territorial counterparts to ensure that we know who owns which corporations, which will prevent Canadian or international companies from facilitating tax evasion, money laundering, and other criminal activities. There will be background checks on significant investors in any marijuana organizations. That is the kind of framework that we're putting in place to protect Canadians, to reduce the profits of organized crimes, and protect our communities.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neigette, Témiscouata, Les Basques. The problem is that the financial agreements signed by the government ensure that we can't find out who's part of those tax havens. And these information sharing agreements don't work. We still don't know who is at the head of these companies, who's investing in tax havens. How do we know who's investing here afterwards? And then we found out that friends of the Liberal Party, for example, a former advisor, use tax havens in order to invest in cannabis production. And all that just a few months before legalization. You will understand that we're a bit worried about this. This is a wake-up call that the Prime Minister is ignoring. When will he wake up and realize that his Liberal friends are just the tip of the iceberg? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to counter tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance. We invested nearly $1 billion in the Canada Revenue Agency in order to counter that. I am pleased to repeat the announcement made earlier today that all over the country, 30 different investigators from the agency are acting in Vancouver, in Calgary, in Toronto. They're making sure that we will continue to fight tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance. The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, the number of links between the Liberal Party of Canada, businesses that produce cannabis, and the funding flowing through tax havens is just mind-boggling. Furthermore, shell companies located in tax havens and the secrecy they offer cast doubt on who will be the final beneficiaries of these businesses. The government neglected to set up strict rules around this industry's funding. The proposed regulatory framework is just a smokescreen. What were the Prime Minister's real intentions when legalizing cannabis? Was it to benefit his Liberal buddies? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to fiscal information, we are focusing on transparency and expanding the amount of information we can access. Canada has a vast network of conventions and many tools that have allowed the Canada Revenue Agency to exchange 2.2 million sources of information because of the historic investments that we have made to counter aggressive tax avoidance and tax evasion. The agency will be able to recover over $5 billion over the next several years. We are going to continue to work that we counter tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance.
Burnaby.
Mr. Speaker, simply there is no due diligence. We're talking about $277 million coming to Canada from secret tax havens, benefiting from the poor management by this government of cannabis. We don't even know who's involved. Is it Liberal insiders again? Is it organized crime? Or is it both? The Prime Minister's willingness to sign anything with overseas tax havens and poor fiscal rules mean these secretive funds don't even have to report their capital gains in Canada. Perfect for money laundering. Why is this Prime Minister being so utterly irresponsible?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, protecting the health and safety of Canadians is a top priority for our government, and that is why we were moving forward on a legalized regime for the sale of marijuana. Under our proposed regulations, security clearances will be mandatory for individuals who occupy key positions in any organization, as well as background checks on significant investors to any marijuana company. In addition, the Minister of Finance recently reached an agreement with his provincial and territorial counterparts to ensure that we know who owns which corporations, which will help prevent Canadian or international companies from facilitating tax evasion.
Honourable member for Carleton.
On the subject of ministers receiving valuable and improper gifts, the Liberal Vice Chair of the Ethics Committee and Liberal member of the Prime Minister's caucus said, and I quote, "I do think repayment of the reasonable value of an improper gift that one receives is prudent and reasonable for the Act." Does the Prime Minister agree with the Liberal Vice Chair of the Ethics Committee that ministers should return the commercial value of any improper gift they receive?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, immediately after the Ethics Commissioner released her report, I accepted the findings of the report, took responsibility, and I'm following up on every single element of her advice or recommendation. That's what Canadians expect, and that following of the Ethics Commissioner's advice and recommendations is exactly what Canadians expect of any of us.
Order. Do members not think that Canadians have the capacity to judge the quality of questions and answers? I think they recognize that that's the case. I think members know that Canadians, the public, has the capacity to do that. They don't need assistance in this chamber. Member for Carleton.
Well, I'm glad the Prime Minister mentioned the Ethics Commissioner because his Vice Chair asked the Ethics Commissioner if he agreed that a minister should return any improperly received gifts, and the Commissioner said, of course it would be. Does the Prime Minister agree with the Ethics Commissioner on that?
Honourable Prime Minister.
What's interesting, Mr. Speaker, is we have the best economic growth numbers in 10 years, the lowest rate of unemployment in 40 years, the fastest growth rate in the G7, and the members opposite spend their time slinging mud, making personal attacks, trying to stir up stories that have already been dealt with. I took responsibility. I accept the full recommendations and advice of the Ethics Commissioner, and they don't have anything else to criticize us on, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, we're just trying to help Liberal cabinet ministers understand what the rules are. And so that's why I'm asking the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's cabinet is here and they're listening. He has an opportunity to inform them. If a minister, for example, got a $200,000 gift from someone who was lobbying that minister, would the Prime Minister take action? What action would he take? Would he fire the minister? Would he force them to give the gift back? Would he refer the matter to the RCMP or just shrug?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as has been the case for previous Prime Ministers and as the former Commissioner herself stated, security costs are incurred whenever and wherever the Prime Minister travels. Right. Moving forward, of course, I'm happy to follow all the advice and recommendations that the Commissioner had to make, including surrounding personal and private travel.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not talking about the cost of the transportation and security. I'm talking about the commercial value of a gift. I never actually mentioned the Prime Minister, by the way. I just described some conduct, and he immediately attributed it to himself. But it's funny. An island like the one on which he vacationed, they're advertised for, and they cost a lot of money, Mr. Speaker, approximately $200,000 for the amount of time and the number of people the Prime Minister had vacationing as part of this gift. Does he believe that a minister, any minister, should repay an improper gift of that size?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians watching question period could be alarmed at the tone and the attacks that come back and forth in this place. But they should be reassured that above the partisanship, above the mudslinging, we have an ethics commissioner who looks into allegations, that looks into behaviors, and makes determinations on what happened and what needs to happen going forward. And I actually am pleased that the ethics commissioner made clarifications, significantly put forward recommendations. I accepted responsibility and have endeavored and will commit to following all the recommendations of the ethics commissioner.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Section 121(1)(c) of the Criminal Code says, and I quote, it says it is an offence for a government official to, quote, accept from a person who has dealings with the government a commission, reward, advantage, or benefit of any kind for themselves or another person. If the Prime Minister learned that one of his ministers had accepted a benefit from someone who had dealings with the government, what would he do about it?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Canadians understand and appreciate that the function of an opposition in this parliamentary system is to ask tough questions and challenge the government. What is important to know, however, is we have a system that goes above the partisan attacks and the personal mudslinging and actually charges the ethics commissioner with looking into issues and allegations of this, making findings of fact, and making determinations on the path forward. I have fully accepted all the findings, all the advice, all the recommendations by the Ethics Commissioner. Thank her for her work, and we'll keep going.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I merely quoted sections out of the Criminal Code without referring to the Prime Minister. He instantaneously assumed that I was making a personal attack against him. This is a Prime Minister who accepted a gift that's worth approximately $200,000 from someone who is seeking a $15 million grant from the Government of Canada. Does he dispute these facts?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the issue we've run into with this particular member opposite before is he was able to say things in the House of Commons out from under parliamentary immunity that he would no longer repeat outside. And the fact is that we have an ethics commissioner whose job is to look at the facts to determine what is public, what is private, what is responsible, what is not, what is personal attacks, what is not. And I accepted responsibility, accept the full findings and recommendations of the ethics commissioner, and that's what reassures Canadians.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. 7,000 people all over Quebec signed a petition asking the Prime Minister, the Minister of Heritage, and the Minister of Finance to pass emergency measures for our local media and local journalism. 7,000 people is a big group. Reporters came to table this petition in Parliament today, but not a single Liberal was available to receive them. What a shame. After losing 16,000 jobs in this sector, our media, our reporters, our democracy need emergency measures. Will the government commit to including emergency measures in its next budget? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, local and community information of high quality is essential to our democracy. We've invested over $600 million in CBC Radio Canada, for example. And since we've invested, there are reporters in communities where there was no coverage before. We are also modernizing the Periodicals Fund. We want to make sure that the fund meets the needs for local information and local magazines. We know that there is more to do, and we will continue to work with organizations to make sure that we have free, independent press.
Today is another sad day for journalism. The Toronto Star has laid off over 50 people. The news media is undergoing unprecedented changes, yet the Minister of Canadian Heritage has not acted on any of the recommendations from either her commission report or the parliamentary committee report. Months have passed and job losses are a daily occurrence in the media. How many consultations, reports, and recommendations will it take for the government to decide to do something, even to act on a single recommendation?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, reliable local and community news is essential for the functioning of our democracy. For example, we've invested $675 million in CBC Radio-Canada that then turned around and introduced journalists into areas where they had never been served before. We're also modernizing the Canada Periodical Fund to ensure that it's meeting the needs of local news and magazines, including in the transition to digital. We know there is more to do, and we will continue to work with our valued friends and partners in the media to ensure that they can continue to do their job of holding the democracy to account and informing citizens.
The member for Carleton.
Section 121(1)(c) of the Criminal Code makes it an offence for a government official to, quote, accept from a person who has dealings with the government a commission, reward, advantage, or benefit of any kind for themselves or another person. Was the Prime Minister aware of this section of the Criminal Code when he accepted a $200,000 gift from a person who has dealings with his government?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, above the mudslinging, we have an Ethics and Conflict of Interest Commissioner who is tasked with looking into the facts of issues and making recommendations and holding parliamentarians, all parliamentarians, to account. When the Commissioner put forward her report, I fully accepted that report, took responsibility, and have been implementing the advice and recommendations she made from it. The opposition may continue to want to sling mud and make personal attacks, but Canadians can be reassured that the Ethics Commissioner is doing her job, has done her job.
The honourable member for Carleton.
But her job does not include investigating matters under the Criminal Code. There are two essential elements to Section 121(c) of the Criminal Code. A government official accepting a benefit, one, from a person who has dealings with the government. Two, did the Prime Minister accept a benefit from the Aga Khan? Does the Aga Khan have dealings with the government?
Simple. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, these are all questions that the Ethics Commissioner dug into in her report and made clear recommendations on. What's clear, however, is that on this side of the House, we value and respect the work done by officers of Parliament. On that side of the House, they continue to question the work of the Ethics Commissioner, just like they did, Mr. Speaker, for 10 years of insulting, minimizing, discarding the advice of officers of Parliament. That's what they did when they were in government. We take a different approach. We respect the great work done by our officers of Parliament.
Excellent. Member for Carleton.
Well, it's not the Ethics Commissioner that's responsible for investigating matters under the Criminal Code, Mr. Speaker. The RCMP is responsible for that. Did the Prime Minister or his office ever discuss his island vacation with any member of the RCMP?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, the Ethics Commissioner did a complete and thorough investigation at the request of members opposite. I cooperated with the Ethics Commissioner on every step of the way, and her report is fulsome and rigorous. If they choose to question the work that she's done, the quality of work that the former Ethics Commissioner did, well, that's their prerogative. And quite frankly, it's consistent with the approach that the Conservative government under Stephen Harper always had, which is minimize, discard, and ignore the great work done by officers of Parliament.
Right. A member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear. On behalf of the opposition, we fully endorse the Ethics Commissioner's finding of guilt for this Prime Minister. He wrote 4 sections of the ethics law, and now he wants to turn himself into the victim because the opposition is asking legitimate questions about Section 121 of the Criminal Code. Does he dispute that he accepted thousands of dollars of benefits from somebody who had official dealings with his government and with him personally?
The Prime Minister.
And Mr. Speaker, in this place, we have a system where different parties ask questions and hold governments to account, and it works very well. But what also works very well is Canadians can be reassured that above the mudslinging and personal attacks, we have officers of Parliament, like the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, who will dig into the actual facts of the matter, make thorough investigations. We worked with the Ethics Commissioner throughout the fall and can say we fully accept all her findings and have moved forward on accepting all her recommendations.
Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, mail carriers in rural and suburban areas are paid 25% less per hour than their urban counterparts, and they also have fewer benefits. 2/3 of rural mail carriers are women, while a majority of urban mail carriers are men. Canada Post refuses to even acknowledge that a pay gap exists, and the government is dragging its feet on the issue. Women have waited long enough. When will this government keep its promise and end this injustice? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, a pay gap between men and women in 2018 is unacceptable. After 10 years of inaction from the former government, we are taking action to eliminate the pay gap and to encourage women's participation in the labour market. $7 billion to meet the educational needs and childcare, an increase in childcare benefits, investments in affordable housing, setting up flexible work hours, and I could go on and on. I know there's still work to be done, but we will keep working.
Lady Smith.
30 years Canada Post fought its female workers in court. It's shameful. 2 years ago, the Liberals voted for our NDP motion to give women the respect we deserve and implement pay equity. But we still haven't seen any movement. The Prime Minister claims to be a feminist, yet his government has not legislated pay equity in law. Women want concrete action today. We've waited far too long already. With the budget coming in 2 weeks, will this government finally introduce measures to legislate equal pay for women? We're looking for action, not words.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I'm very pleased that half an hour into question period, we finally get a question on the upcoming budget. We consider that the gender wage gap in 2018 is unacceptable. Therefore, after 10 years of inaction from the previous government, we're taking action to help address the wage gap and support women's labour market participation. Already, we've put $7 billion to address early learning and childcare. We've increased parental and maternity benefits. We've invested in affordable housing and homes care, and we are also going to be moving forward on pay equity.
Member for Brampton East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Brampton East, young people are eager to share their ideas on the most pressing issues of our time. That's right. Each week, I host a basketball drop-in where 100 young Canadians come in, and we play some ball and we talk about issues impacting Canada's future. Whether that's climate change, economic prosperity, or social justice issues, young Canadians are ready to have their voices added to the conversation. Will the Prime Minister please update this House and all Canadians on the launch of a national dialogue on Canada's first youth policy and how young Canadians can be involved? Thank you.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for Brampton East for his question. As we know, young Canadians aren't just leaders of tomorrow, they're leaders today. We announced the launch of a new interactive online platform, youthaction.ca, where young Canadians can share their ideas and perspectives on the development of a youth policy. This is the first step towards building a policy that will hold this and future governments to account when it comes to issues that matter to young Canadians. I encourage all young Canadians to join the conversation and look forward to their feedback.
Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, if the Liberals have a plan of action and they're going to actually do what it takes to get Trans Mountain built, why did they refuse to tell Canadians exactly what that plan is? The only consistent action by the Liberals has been inaction, and the Prime Minister's failure of leadership has directly led to the escalating interprovincial dispute. Clearly, he's lost control of this national priority. The pipeline opponents say they'll use all tools available to kill it. What tools will the Prime Minister commit to use to get the pipeline built?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is eerily reminiscent of the tone and the approach that for 10 years failed to get pipelines built from the government, the previous Conservative government. They thought ramming things through was a way to get things done, and they didn't get it done, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we understand what Canadians know, that you protect the environment and grow the economy together. And that's exactly what we're doing. That's why we put forward a national plan on fighting climate change at the same time as we are moving forward on building the Keystone XL pipeline, the Kinder Morgan pipeline.
Member for order. Order. The Honourable. Feel the love. Valentine's Day. Order. The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
That's confidence building. Wrong one. The minister says he won't accept any unnecessary or undue delays on the Trans Mountain expansion, although he won't define them, even though it's already been held up for 142 days. Construction is stalled, spending is slowed, operations are postponed. The Prime Minister says he won't allow it to be stalled or stopped, and he claims the pipeline will be built. But yesterday, the Liberals defeated a motion just asking them to set out a concrete plan of action. They won't answer today. Is the Prime Minister not willing to announce his plan because he actually doesn't even have one?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we understand that protecting the environment and growing the economy go together. And that's exactly what we've done. We have focused on building world-class carbon reduction plan that's actually going to deliver on our Paris targets. We've invested over $1.5 billion in protecting our coasts, and we're moving forward on getting our resources to new markets through the Kinder Morgan pipeline. These are the things that Canadians expect of a government, to pull things together and create environment and economy that go together. That's what they failed to do. That's what we're doing.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, let's look at the facts regarding the Liberals and pipelines. The Prime Minister was a failure on Northern Gateway. That one's dead. And the Liberals' anti-development policy has killed Energy East. That's dead. And Trans Mountain is now under threat because the Prime Minister is abdicating his responsibility and missing in action. The Prime Minister standing up and spouting platitudes is not leadership. So, does he have a plan, and when is Kinder Morgan going to get started?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leadership we've demonstrated on growing the economy and protecting the environment together is showing its fruits, is showing benefits. We have the fastest growing economy in the G7 right now, the lowest unemployment rates in 40 years, and it's partially because we have restored Canadians' trust in our process. They know that we can both reduce our carbon emissions and meet our Paris targets and build outlets for our resources to new markets, like the Kinder Morgan pipeline. That's what Canadians expect. That's what they failed at.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we've heard the Prime Minister, his top advisors, and many of his own caucus say that they think our oil should stay in the ground and pipelines should not even be built. And now the Prime Minister has said that approving Trans Mountain was a trade-off. He admitted that he used it as a bargaining chip to negotiate with. It's clear the Prime Minister doesn't value or respect our natural resources and the people who work in them. He sees them as pawns for his own benefit. When will this Prime Minister stand up for energy workers' interests and get Trans Mountain started?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's in questions like that that we see that the Conservatives have learned nothing from the 2015 election campaign. They still refuse to accept that the environment and the economy need to go together. They fought against that for 10 years, and not only were they unable to protect our environment, they didn't get anything done on the economic side because they refuse to understand that the only way to grow the economy and create jobs in the future for Canadians is to be responsible on the environment at the same time, and they refuse to get that.
Honourable.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, one by one, both Conservatives and Liberals have abandoned seasonal workers. The black hole is a more than 4-month-long period in which seasonal workers may be completely without income due to poor employment or insurance reforms. The Liberals didn't keep their election promise of repealing the Conservative reform that penalizes seasonal workers and their families. When will this government keep its promise and finally help these seasonal workers? Will it be in the next budget? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, when we were elected, we promised that we would restore, or rather reverse, the changes that the Conservatives made to employment insurance. And that's exactly what we've done. I want to thank all of our Atlantic members, our Quebec members, and others from across the country who worked with us to ensure that seasonal workers can have the options that they need. And yes, we are very aware of the challenge of the black hole, and that's why we are working with them to solve it.
Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, this year marks 80 years since Gatineau Park was established, and for nearly 50 years the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society has been striving for its protection. Gatineau Park is a cherished resource within our national capital and home to 118 rare or endangered species. But despite its importance, there are no restrictions on development and no set borders for the park. Will the Prime Minister and the Minister of Canadian Heritage accept CPAW's request and amend the National Capital Act to protect the ecological integrity of Gatineau Park and establish its boundaries in law?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, like many people who live in Ottawa, we appreciate Gatineau Park to an extraordinary degree. The trails, the millions of Canadians who visit it every year make it a true jewel in our National Capital Region. We will continue to work with the National Capital Commission and various partners to ensure that we're doing everything we can to protect this beautiful wilderness area for generations to come.
Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of Canada has been silent on the Iranian protests, which Amnesty International yesterday confirmed has led to thousands being imprisoned. He's been silent on drones and missiles financed by Iran facing our ally Israel. He's been silent even on the death of Canadian Professor Syed Imami in an Iranian prison on the weekend. Instead of silence from the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, when can we have him standing up for human rights, for democracy, and for Canadians instead of cozying up to an Iranian regime?
Hear, hear. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government has been consistent in standing up for human rights everywhere around the world. Whenever I meet with any leader around the world, I bring up human rights. We talk about the importance of protecting Canadian interests. And in this tragic case coming out of Iran, we have communicated clearly our desire for an autopsy, for a complete independent investigation. We demand that Canadians be treated fairly, that their families be supported, and that we get to the bottom of this situation.
Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
An independent investigation from the government of Iran? After those town halls, maybe it's hard to know when the Prime Minister is joking. But this joke isn't funny, Mr. Speaker. This is a government, the government of Iran, a regime that gives LGBTQ children electric shock therapy. The government should stop cozying up to the regime. This is his chance. The Prime Minister has said nothing thus far on the protests. So could he stand up and finally support the cause of protesters who are fighting for democracy, human rights, justice, and the rule of law?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we are always unequivocal about standing up for LGBT rights. We are, of course, deeply troubled by the deaths and detentions of protesters during protests in Iran. The Iranian people must be able to freely assemble without facing violence or imprisonment. We will always defend human rights. That's why Canada rallied more countries than ever before at the UN in November on a resolution calling on Iran to comply with its international human rights obligations. Our government is committed to holding Iran to account for its violation of human and democratic rights.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Organizations are swiftly ending their affiliation with Oxfam after serious allegations of its staff sexually exploiting Haitian women have surfaced. In November, the Prime Minister announced $17.5 million to Oxfam's Philippine operations to empower women and girls in gender-sensitive sexual health services. Today, Oxfam's Regional Director for Asia said she knew of claims of sexual abuse involving their staff in the Philippines. Will the Prime Minister suspend funding to Oxfam?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we strongly condemn all forms of exploitation and abuse of women and children in the conduct of international aid operations, and we take these situations and these allegations very seriously. Oxfam Canada and Oxfam Quebec confirm that no employee or Canadian funds are connected to the deplorable situation in Haiti. And in regards to Philippines, we're following up because we require that all partners we work with in disaster or humanitarian situations adhere to internationally agreed on codes of conduct and code principles related to sexual exploitation and abuse.
Honourable Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, love is in the air as today is Valentine's Day. I'm reminded of the Centino family. They are a married couple with children and face difficulty due to separation. Through a spousal sponsorship, they were reunified and overjoyed that their file was approved and finalized. The Conservatives kept newcomer families apart by making them wait for over 26 months to be reunited in Canada with their spouses and children. Will the Prime Minister please update the House on how our government is continuing to support family reunification on this Valentine's Day?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to first thank the member from Surrey Centre for his question and for his advocacy on this family reunification issue. The Conservatives left us a backlog of over 75,000 applications and forced families to remain separated from each other for over 2 years. With our commitment and investments in family reunification, we have reduced the backlog to under 15,000 and maintained a service standard for processing applications in under 12 months for spouses and children. While Conservatives kept families apart, our government will continue to work to reunite loved ones.
The Honourable Member. Order. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-452, brought forward by a female Member of Parliament to help other women victimized by human trafficking, was left by the wayside by our supposedly feminist Prime Minister. Instead of accepting the decisions of the House and Senate, he came back with his own bill that does more to help criminals than women. Why can't he recognize that his bill is botched? And what is he waiting for to help protect these vulnerable women? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as a government, a feminist government, our approach has always been to invest in women, to support women, and to fight against gender-based violence. We want to ensure that women have the types of recourse that they need in difficult situations. We will continue to support women, and we will continue to know that empowering women and encouraging women to work and protecting women from harassment and violence is a passion for this entire government.
Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, the night that Colton Boushie was killed, the RCMP raided the home of his grieving mother and treated her as if she was an accomplice. They left his body lying in a field in the rain for 2 days. They handcuffed his friends and took them on a high-speed police chase. This is not how you treat victims of crime, so don't say their race wasn't a huge part of this tragedy. So to the Prime Minister, will he agree to an independent investigation into the RCMP's handling of the Boushie killing and tell this House that the RCMP in Saskatchewan will finally be brought under an independent review process to deal with police complaints?
Hear, hear. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was touched and honoured to be able to sit with family members, with Colton Boushie's family members just yesterday, and to reflect with them on the challenges facing not just them, but Indigenous peoples across this country, facing the justice system, facing police services. And what I was incredibly inspired by in their conversation is, despite all the pain and despite all the anger, they are very much focused on fixing the system for the future, for other families. We are going to work with them. We are going to fix our justice system, our police systems, make sure that everyone is treated fairly.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-la-Métis, Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues and I are working hard to represent our citizens in Ottawa. For some time, people have been talking to us about their concerns about this insurance employment black hole. We are very aware of this issue, and as the Prime Minister said earlier, we have already reversed the Conservatives' EI reform in order to support seasonal workers. Can the Prime Minister tell us more about this issue in order to respond to their concerns? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Avignon-la-Métis Matane-Matapédia for his question. And I want to mention that all of our Atlantic and Quebec members are doing extraordinary work to represent their constituents and to underline this very important issue of the black hole. We are aware of the fact that some seasonal workers are facing this issue, and we are currently working to identify solutions both in the short term and the long term. I'm proud of our team who are continuing to defend the interests of their community here in Ottawa. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Negotiations will start tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. between the Davie Shipyard and the Coast Guard because we need icebreakers. Who said that? The Prime Minister himself. He said that in Quebec City last January as part of his grand tour. Since then, we've heard absolutely nothing. Nothing for the Davie Shipyard workers, even though they're the only ones who delivered the Astérix ship on time and on budget. When will these negotiations restart so that they can start working on the 4 icebreakers that the Prime Minister himself promised? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Davie Shipyard is a major shipyard, and we recognize its workers' expertise. They did excellent work in delivering Astérix. Following consultations with industry, the Government of Canada undertook discussions with the Davie Shipyard, as promised, so that we could talk about options for the Coast Guard's interim needs in terms of icebreakers. We are in the first stages of those discussions, and we hope to have more information once those discussions are completed. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Well, for the Davie Shipyard, it'd be nice to move from talk to action. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Revenue Minister showed a lack of respect for my constituents and for everyone represented by an opposition member by showing contempt for the role of question period. But she apologized. Will the Prime Minister, that expert apologizer, do the same and apologize to all of the hardworking people who pay their taxes while his government gives a free pass to the wealthy by signing agreements with tax havens? Because that, Mr. Speaker, merits a real apology. Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the first thing that we did as a government was to lower taxes for the middle class and ask the wealthiest to do a little bit more and pay a little bit more. After that, we delivered on the Canada Child Benefit, which gives more money to 9 out of 10 Canadian families and has helped lift 40% of young people out of poverty. That's hundreds of thousands of young people, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to fight against tax avoidance and evasion, including through the $1 billion in investments that we made in the Canada Revenue Agency to do its work. It being 3:09 p.m., pursuant to an order adopted on Tuesday, the House will now proceed to the deferred recorded division on the motion at second reading stage of Bill C-371 under private members' business. Call in the members.
Question is as follows. Mr. Clement, seconded by Mr. Anderson, moved that Bill C-371, an act respecting the prevention of radicalization through foreign funding and making related amendments to the Income Tax Act, be now read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. All those at my left in favor of the motion will please rise.
Mr. Clement.
Fifth row at my left.
Mr. Stanton. Mr. Stanton.
Mr. Lauzon, Starman, that's South Glengarry.
Mr. Lauzon. Mr. Lauzon.